You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
Can a soulless money grab still inspire a good conversation? Would you brave the unknown for a pardon? What are the newest change-ups in the Pokémon card scene? Is the newest adaptation of Trigon worth your time? What are the newest video games coming out soon that we're really hyped about? And finally, what is TJ's second secret thing that he refused to disclose to us before we recorded? And will it live up to the hype, or will we all roll our eyes in disdain? All these topics and more are what we're going to be discussing today on today's episode of What's News. Guys, we are Systematic Geekology. We are the priests to the geeks. I'm your host, Christian Ashley. I am joined today by, of course, the best co-host in all of creation. Throughout time and space, wherever you go, he's always going to be there, hyping you up, TJ Blackwell.
Thank you.
We are also joined today by our special friend, James. How are you doing today?
Great. Hope everyone's doing well.
Awesome. So, guys, as we always do with these, we're going to start with a quick lightning round. Some of the stuff that we want to talk about, we don't really want to focus on. I'm going to be bringing up the Bad Batch finale. First of all, I think, TJ, you're still behind. James, where are you at with your watch?
I have not started season 2 yet. It slipped for me.
Okay.
But I've been spoiled on some stuff, so go for it.
Okay. So suffice to say, I am way more hyped about this than I was in the middle of the season, where things were getting a little too fillery for their own good. But we started focusing more on characters. We started focusing more on the plot. And the finale gave me some hope for the future and left us with some nice questions as well as some heartache along the way. I really enjoyed it. Guys, check out the Bad Batch if you haven't. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah. The Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Editions just came out. If you never got around to playing the first one, definitely buy it. Play the game. It's good. It's fun.
And what did they change about it? I know they increased the level cap.
Yeah, so they increased the level cap, all the DLCs included, and I think other than that, it's just like little bug fixes and things, which is needed.
Mine is just another Star Wars thing. If you haven't watched Star Wars Rebels, now is the time to binge Star Wars Rebels. Based on some recent cameos and Easter eggs in this season of The Mandalorian. I've not watched today's episode yet, but now's the time. Suffice to say, now's the time. If you need any endorsement, I drug my fiance through Rebels in about 2 weeks. She was not willing. He liked Star Wars, but hadn't seen them all until we started dating years and years ago. And by the end, she felt all the feelings. There were tears. There were happy tears. There were sad tears. There was great anticipation for Ahsoka. So now is the time to binge Rebels.
Well put. Yeah, guys, if you haven't watched Rebels, watch Rebels.
Yeah, seriously, watch it.
A little outside of our usual wheelhouse, but rumor has it that Taylor Swift will be releasing a single of Taylor's version from each of the 4 albums that do not yet have a Taylor's version.
Well, you never know what you're going to get in the lightning round, because I was blown away by that. You know what? Go for it. You can do whatever you want here, TJ. Let's see. Last on my list that I can recall, at least, The Mandalorian. I have watched the most recent episode, but I will say nothing for the sake of our friends here. But suffice to say, once again, it has been tremendously fun. Just Din and Bo and even Grogu as well going through some tremendous character arcs right now as far as who they are as people, who they are as Mandalorians. I'm really loving it. We're getting a lot of intrigue here on the New Republic side, on the Imperial side, and I am in it to win it. All right. So we're getting to our main topics of discussion today. So I'm going to bring up something that I watched so you don't have to, and that is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Oof. Now, if you guys don't know what this is, recently what happened is that parts of the Winnie the Pooh, let's see, I'll just say canon for the sake of it, have fallen into the public domain. And what occurred is, as often happens when these things do, is that someone decided, well, I'm going to make some money off of it because it just came out of public domain. I have to pay the original authors. And they decided to make a horror film that, you know, when I first heard it, saying this could work. Suffice to say, no, it doesn't. This is one of the, I used the word soulless before. Yeah, this is a very soulless film that outside of one moment when a certain character speaks for the first time, I really despised. It involves Christopher Robin at one point in time being a child, raising these little weird like half people, half animal beings is how they're referred to in the film. And along the way, he goes off to college and they starve when he's gone, and they have to devolve into cannibalistic killers in this. And it is quite the ride, not worth it, in my opinion. But yeah, that's what it is. So I watched it, so you don't have to. But we're going to discuss other things because I believe my co-hosts have not watched this film, and they're better off for it. So the only reason, like I said, that this film exists is because Winnie the Pooh has entered the public domain. Now, what are our opinions about how the public domain's been handled within the U.S., and what do we think needs to change, if at all?
I think the public domain time length should be shorter, significantly shorter.
How short, in your opinion?
Like maybe 50 years.
Okay.
Which would put Star Wars almost in public domain if they hadn't continued after A New Hope.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. But, so for me, I wish there was some sort of authoritative apparatus that could evaluate pieces of media that enter into the public domain to sort of stop some craziness happening, like making a Winnie the Pooh Blood and Money. I mean, that's just such a cash grab, right? Like,
absolutely,
off a childhood thing to get money, and you're sort of inherently tearing down the soul of the original thing, the author's intent, right? So, like, we do this sort of with scripture. Scripture is a good analog here because everyone can read scripture. You can do whatever you want with scripture, but yet we still have these places we return to sort of like learn what the original intent of the thing is. And so maybe that's systematic ecology or places like that where people who have loved these franchises and canons. Weird to think of Winnie the Pooh as a canon. I guess it is. Places we can return to sort of dispel some of the craziness.
Yeah.
I watched the trailer for this. I don't do horror. First of all, I'm a coward. So if you're a coward, I feel you. You are valid and strong, and it's okay. And I couldn't get through the trailer just because, like, not that it was like the trailer was overwhelmingly scary, just because like these characters that I had loved from the time of 6 or 7 years old or however old I started reading Winnie the Pooh, like, or watching those movies. I remember going to see the Tigger movie with my mom because Tigger was her favorite. Anyways, I couldn't get through it because it was just such a disgrace.
and I'm coming off as very negative on this film. Spoilers, my review is that I'm going to be like a 1 out of 10. And it's something that could work if you did it well. I'm not opposed to the idea, but it's so obvious, like, oh, it's in a public domain. I have no one to pay for this script except for the writer of that script. So we're just going to send it out as soon as possible and make all the money we can off of this, which unfortunately is what some parts of horror have become these days. You make the, what's the word I'm looking for? The cheapest scripts possible, and you're guaranteed, at least on opening day, like $7-10 million. And it just keeps making money, so people keep doing it. So that's where I'm at with that. As far as public domain is concerned, I'm with TJ, but I'm a little more strict. I am author's death plus 25 years, and then it becomes public domain. Because in my opinion, that's plenty of time to settle the estate. That's plenty of time for wives and children and so on and so forth to make enough money off of it. And then after that, it needs to be given to the people, and they can use it for good or ill.
Okay. Yeah. A big, a different discussion around this that is probably out of our wheelhouse, but is the issue in rap music right now over samples. So artists want to do some really creative things with samples in their music, and other artists block because they have rights to those samples, and so it stops artists from being able to use them. I was just this weekend, I just went to the Dreamville Festival in Raleigh. I don't know if you've heard about this. I was very fortunate. It was awesome. So this is a big rap music festival based on J. Cole. And he literally was on stage calling out Kanye West. And he's like, I'm trying to release this thing. I'm trying to get it to the people. You won't clear this one sample. And so now everyone has to like market, find it on the internet. And we can't put it on Spotify. So yeah, it public domain is good when it, I feel like, allows creativity. It gets wonky when you just take something and and run off in a completely opposite direction. And I feel like another comparison here is Kingdom Hearts, right? The only other Winnie the Pooh adaptation I have seen is within that, and it's been throughout several of the games. I love it, but like that adaptation feels within the spirit of the thing.
Yes,
it's
well, even with Kingdom Hearts 2, we have rights issues with Tarzan, and that he's no longer been able to appear since the first game.
Right,
and
I felt
like Edgar Rice Burroughs has been dead for years.
Right, and I feel like that story in Kingdom Hearts 1 was within the sort of spirit of...
Yes.
I felt like it was a faithful adaptation. So it's interesting when, how long do we hold on to rights? When do we stop creativity? But how do we also sort of maybe maintain the underlying spirit of the thing?
Yeah.
What's our hermeneutic of
yeah.
So, guys, we kind of brought it up before, but like, what is it about children's stories that make people want to pervert them and make them darker and edgier? I mean, is it possible for this to be a good thing at all?
No.
A stunning repartee there. Anything further, TJ?
No.
James?
Maybe. I think for me, I would want to consider the genre, the original genre of the thing. So like if you think about genre studies, like Winnie the Pooh, for instance, is a comedy. There's a happy ending. Like there's a good resolution. That doesn't mean there can't be ups and downs along the way. But I think if you twist the genre, like bend it out of place, it becomes something else entirely, even though it's using the same characters. So I think like adding intrigue and some sort of darker narrative elements can like still help you arrive at that end, and maybe in a more satisfying way even. But if you flip it on its head, then I don't know if we're dealing with the same thing at all.
Yep. I mean, even for as silly as this example is, Winnie the Pooh, it's not averse to having horror elements in it. If you watch The Search for Christopher Robin or Quest for Christopher Robin, whichever it is, like the whole scenario where they're imagining what could have happened to him and their quest to find him and rescue him from Skull, which is actually school, as you find along the way. I mean, there are horror elements within that. So it can work within the canon to do something like that. But as far as the question I posed, I think about all the times those terrible fan theories of how, let's say Ash died in the first episode of Pokemon. No, he didn't die. He was put on life support. And this whole thing is his wild dream about how he kept going. And that's why he never ages. And all these terrible fan theories to just like, why do you have to change something that is just inherently good and wholesome for that? And I think it's just because people are too jaded for our own good.
Yeah.
But I mean, in examples I brought up here, because I had to write them down because my memory kind of sucks. I bring up two examples. So Ultraman Nexus is something I can think of as a huge Ultraman fan. Ultraman is obviously intended primary audience for kids, even though there are elements within it that are more adult. At the end of the day, it can go into this different genre. This is darker and edgier done right. It shows how people would respond, Ultraman Nexus specifically, to this being that just came out of nowhere and starts attacking these other giant kaiju. It's like, well, how do you know he's on our side? How do you know he's actually working with us? Can we actually trust this figure? You don't get that question a lot in Ultraman series. It does happen occasionally, but it's dark and edgy done right. And of course, another example I can give is Battlestar Galactica. So guys who are more familiar with the series from the 03 and 04, you may think, Battlestar Galactica, how was that ever for kids? Watch the 78 show and then watch Galactica 1980. And they go, oh my gosh, these things are like night and day. But it's done in a way that's true to the core of the original series while also creating darker elements for a more adult audience. You guys have any other examples you can think of stuff like that before I move on to the poor adaptations, in my opinion?
Not really. But the Clone Wars kind of does a really good job of aging its themes with the audience.
Yeah, comparing seasons, like seasons 1 and 2 are a little softer.
Yeah, I think it does a really good job.
James, do you have anything?
Yeah, this is an adaptation that I feel like worked or bringing forward, and it's the podcast we did came out this weekend, I think, on Watchmen.
Ooh,
that one worked. That one worked because the original graphic novels were dealing with themes of like mutually assured destruction and making comics darker and edgier. And that sort of happened. And then 30 years later, we get this series and it's dealing with the same sort of dark, edgy themes, things we don't like to look in the face or talk about, that is in this contemporary moment. And it worked.
That's a good one. Examples that I have that I know are going to be controversial of darker and edgier being done poorly to primarily children's themed stuff would be Snyder's Batman versus Superman, the Snyderverse as a whole, really, in my opinion. I think it goes way too hard on the darker and edgier elements. I mean, I'm not against the idea of a deconstruction within a superhero film, but at the end of the day, if you're starting off your franchise this way with Man of Steel and then Batman versus Superman, this is a poor introduction to those ideas. I think of Batman using a gun, Batman murdering people on screen, no less. And his relationship with Clark is so damaged in these films. It doesn't feel like they're the same characters, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people out there who love Snyderverse, and I'm not trying to say you're wrong. It's just I feel it's a very poor adaptation. And something else that comes to mind is Velma. I have not finished the show. I watched the first episode, and I checked out. And normally, I don't stop. Mama didn't raise no quitter, but I quit for this one. And it was just awful. It's just the jokes didn't land. It was clear this is done for, what's her name, Mindy, Velma to be her OC, to have all these terrible things said about the Scooby-Doo characters and the canon. I was just not enjoying it. You guys have any examples you can think of?
Yeah, not bad ones still, but on the other side of Velma is Mystery Incorporated.
An excellent one.
Fantastic. Older, edgier, darker. Great show. Still definitely, definably Scooby-Doo. And it was just so good.
Yeah, it's like a perfect example of darker and edgier done right. And that if you first show up with this, oh my gosh, what is this? They changed Scooby-Doo. But like, no, there's a story here. The characters are the same. They react in ways they would have. And it becomes something amazing along the way. James, do you have anything?
Yeah, the only one I'm thinking of, and the reason I'm thinking of it is because a new book is releasing in this series, is the Aragon movie that came out like mid-2000s. There's a throwback, right? Like I loved those as a kid. I don't care if they're derivative off of Tolkien or not. I love them.
Yes.
They were great. And that movie came out and it was like, whoa, wait a minute. Why would you produce this piece of garbage? Series was like still going, like it's just so bad that like it's going to deter people. But a new book is coming out in that series, so plug for that, based on Murtagh. But another one I'm thinking of is the Last Airbender movie.
Yeah.
You know, there, yeah, exactly. Visceral reactions there. And that's a good one because it did try to make it a little bit darker, edgier, I thought, which was just out of step with the spirit of the show and just didn't work. Didn't work at a lot of levels, but did not work. And I'm fear and trepidation for all of these new Netflix adaptations that are going to come out. So
let's hope they do well. All right. Yes. Like I said before, guys, I'm rating this a 1 out of 10. I've talked enough on my subject. Let's move on for TJ, your first subject.
Hell's Paradise, the third of the Dark Trio, as they've come to be known. Chainsaw Man, and Jujutsu Kaisen. Hell's Paradise is the only one that's finished, and it is now getting an anime adaptation. I don't know if y'all have seen the first episode, but pretty good. And I don't know if y'all have read the manga. We'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, if you haven't read it, you need to read it, because I don't think you want to wait for the whole thing to be finished being animated. Maybe you're more patient than I am, but as soon as I heard that it was getting an anime adaptation, I read the whole manga, because I'm just not a fan of waiting. But Hell's Paradise is amazing. Stylistically, thematically, it's so good. It's so good. Basically, what you've got here, because I know it's not that popular yet, is criminal assassin, of course, gets offered a pardon by the Shogun if he can go to this island and retrieve the elixir of life. Him and a bunch of other criminals. They go and they get their handlers, who are all part of the sect of royal executioners, I guess, imperial executioners. They go to this island, and I really don't want to spoil it because it is new, but things go fairly poorly for most of them. And maybe they find what they're looking for. But the growth we see in the series from each of the surviving characters is amazing, and they flesh these characters out so well. But definitely check it out if you haven't. And Christian, you said you did read the manga?
Yes, I read the manga, and I did watch the first episode as well. I'm really hyped for this one. It's one of those, it's not going to be in my top, 100 anytime soon, but I really enjoy the take on it, and getting into some Buddhist and Shinto beliefs of the afterlife and stuff like that. I was learning along the way, and I really appreciated that. I always like when something makes me learn. And there, for the more squeamish among you, there will be some body horror segments coming up soon. Body horror is my favorite part of horror. I know a lot of people like it. It's not for me to an extent. I can watch a little bit. I love The Thing. The Thing's one of my favorite movies of all time, but I have my limits, let's just say. So I'm looking forward to what they have to say here. So James, have you read it?
I have not, but I've been intrigued. I hadn't even really heard of it until maybe about a month ago, when it started getting some hype for the anime coming out. So this is interesting. I'm intrigued.
Oh, it's good. It gets a little Cronenberg-esque for a solid, half of the manga, I feel like.
Yeah.
But it's so good. I think it's not as dark as Chainsaw Man or Jujutsu Kaisen.
Okay.
It feels a bit friendlier than those.
Okay. It's interesting. We could probably do a whole separate conversation on why or how the developments within manga anime are going dark.
Yeah.
You use the phrase dark trio. I hadn't heard that. But it's interesting. We used to talk about the big three. And even to an extent, like My Hero Academia, I don't know if you want to put that in the big three. Some people do. But I love it. I'll ride it all the way down, but it ain't Naruto. It's not one.
Bit of a difference.
Right. So, yeah, but My Hero Academia, just season 6 just came out, which adapted the whole Dark Deku sort of storyline, and that went and is going super dark too. So, just interesting times that we're living in.
Almost definitely. So, TG, you have anything else you want to add to this before we rate and review?
Please watch Hell's Paradise if it is age appropriate for you.
Well said. Yeah. I'm going to give this first episode a 10. I'll give the series as a whole like an 8.
Interesting. I'm perfectly willing to give the series as a whole a 9. It's really good. It's really solid.
All right. Well, without any further ado, James, what is your first topic of discussion?
My first topic of discussion is the current state of the Pokemon trading card game. If do either of you follow Pokemon cards, open Pokemon cards, anything like that?
We play Magic.
Since Gen 1. Sorry, DJ.
Not since Gen 1.
Magic.
Magic? Okay. So I never went down the Magic hole. And, when I got my first job as a pastor was right around when COVID hit. And I discovered that I was still a child in my heart.
Yeah.
And never going to change. And also now I have adult money. And so one of the things I started to do again was get into Pokemon cards. So I really came in about halfway, or returned from my childhood about halfway through the Sword and Shield era. And now Scarlet and Violet is out. And so there's a new generation of Pokemon cards, which just released here in the US last Friday, March 31st. So I've been opening some Pokemon cards this week. I've been hooked. But there are a lot of big changes that have come to this set. So the packs, the individual packs have gone up in price. That's the first change. So it used to be $3.99 now. They are $4.50, and they have incorporated now some changes that align it more with the Japanese set. So the iconic sort of yellow borders around Pokemon cards are now silver. So this is a big change. It probably saves the Pokemon Company printing costs, since all the boards can now just be one base color internationally. But the big change besides that is that there are now 3 guaranteed holo cards in each pack.
Wow.
So previous packs would have a reverse holo, which is sort of where the image itself isn't holographic, but the rest of the card is. This is a really bad example. This yellow one's a better example. You can sort of see the holo on there. Yeah, so now there are 2 reverse holos in each pack and a guaranteed sort of foil holographic card in each. And from a thrill perspective, right? So you could wait out the prices on sites like TCG Player and just buy the singles that you want. And I often do that when I have reached my limit of, I have now spent too much money opening Pokemon cards. Reconcile, and my fiance starts to look at me sideways and go, "What are you doing?" Now you get a holo in each pack. The pull rates are significantly higher than they seem to have been in the Sword and Shield generation. For instance, I opened 2 booster boxes on Friday. Each had 11 packs in them, and I got the equivalent of 2 secret art rare cards in those boxes. So basically 1 guaranteed in each box. Out of all of my opening packs in the Sword and Shield era, I never got a secret rare alternate art card. So does this lessen the value of the cards? Yes. Does it increase the sort of thrill of the hunt of opening Pokemon cards? Yes. I think that's better. You get people wanting to sort of get back in the thrill of not being crushed by Pokemon cards. You actually get something every once in a while that's like worth the retail money that you spend on the cards. So I think the change is good. The last significant change is that the Pokemon V and V Max dynamic from Sword and Shield, which sort of paralleled the Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, is now returning or has now gone away in favor of a return to the Pokemon EX dynamic, which was first introduced in Ruby and Sapphire in 2003, went away for the last time in the X and Y generation of Pokemon cards, but now we're back. I was really disappointed leading up to it because the images I saw online weren't that thrilling compared to the V and V Max images, but having a couple of the EX cards now in hand, I am very pleasantly surprised. They're able to do some things with the holofoil that you just can't capture in images online, and so having them in hand, they look way better than I thought that they would. And yeah, the thrill of the hunt is back. I'm officially excited. I was disappointed going into it, and I've been very pleasantly surprised. So my rate and review of the new series is pretty high. I would say it's an overall improvement. I would give it a sort of probably like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. And part of the reason is that Pokemon has now gone all in with the alternate art or illustration rare sort of concept. So realizing that cards aren't just for playability, but people want them for the art. They're all in on that in this generation, and I think it's going to lead to good things. I think I'm going to have to go on Etsy and buy more custom frames.
Yeah, the Pokemon Company knows what they're doing. As one of the most profitable franchises on the planet, I think as someone who has no attachment to the cards right now, that's a very good system to get more people interested in buying them, is to provide just enough of cool stuff to go, wait, there's still a chance I can find other things here. Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. This is definitely a topic I never would have brought up, especially since I'm so far removed from it. But it's nice to get that insider scoop.
Yeah, it's really because it makes it feasible for you to, when you're going to Target, just get a pack, get one pack. You might get something really good out of it because there's one in every box.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So if you're not hooked, beware. You could get hooked. You could develop my problem.
Yeah. It's like gambling for kids.
And adults and for the kids at heart.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's
All
just
right.
kid friendly.
So next up on our docket, we do have my second topic, which is Trigun Stampede, which is a reimagining and not a remake of the original Trigun anime, which premiered in '98, if I remember correctly, thereabouts. This one has had a ton of controversy around it regarding the CGI used in it, regarding the changes they've made to the story, even though they already said it was going to be a reimagining. Like, guys, have you seen the original anime and or read the manga?
Yeah.
I actually haven't for this one. This is one I never got into.
Ooh, okay. TJ.
I was just about to start reading the manga. It's on my list, which the manga list gets gone through much faster than every other list. And I did watch the original anime.
Yeah, I watched the original when I was in my junior year of college, eons ago, when the world was young, and tremendously enjoyed it. It was a lot of good fun. It wasn't one of my favorites, but I definitely, like, when I was there, I had a good time. And to see this reimagining is something I've been looking forward to episode to episode. Like, the hype just kept increasing. They've done a wondrous job with it, and I'm in. And we may be getting a second season along the way, because we definitely left on one of those, not exactly a cliffhanger, but like things to come kind of ending. So, like I said earlier, there was a lot of criticism brought against it for some of the changes it made, some of the like artistic choices they made. Like, is there anything inherently wrong with reimagining older stories, or should we leave them alone? We kind of brought this up earlier with the public domain thing, but like, this is a different way.
No, I mean, I feel like it's fine. It gets cleared. A lot of stories deserve to be seen in slightly different ways, and if we have enough freedom to do that, then why not?
I feel like it can be a good thing if it gets a new base energized and into series, right? Even if we disagree with the sort of creative changes in the adaptation of a story, like, now you have a base that like has watched this new thing, maybe loves it, and wants to know why people are upset, so they go and watch the original, and now you have compare and contrast, right?
Yeah.
And now you have a whole new fan base.
Yeah, I will say the people who dropped it early because of the changes they made dropped it a little too early, because, not to spoil anything, but certain things are going to still happen if you just stuck it out to the end, if you'd finished the race and run it well.
Yeah. I've only seen the first couple episodes of Stampede, but like, we really enjoyed those couple episodes. We're just busy people, you know. Yeah.
Yes. We've got some, Apex to win. We're speaking of how that's going.
Well, I just opened 100 packs in the background while we were doing this, so it's going great. The new split actually started yesterday. Everyone's rank got set back 2 tiers, so instead of platinum, I'm now in silver, and we're just trying to get back to where we were and try hit diamond this season, and we have 34 days. So,
okay. Well, back to Trigun. That was your Apex minute. One of the points brought up in the series is how we as humans kind of use energy to power the things around us. Like, what are everyone's personal thoughts on the current state of the various forms of energy used today and their byproducts? Kind of an real open question there.
Where to start? So I think thorium-based nuclear energy is the way to go. Thorium produces very little waste. It is much more efficient than uranium. It takes less to cool thorium. It is much more efficient. It's like comparing uranium to coal, thorium to uranium. And the reason we don't is because it doesn't create enough waste that we can use to create depleted uranium rounds, nukes, other nuclear-based weapons. That was something. But yeah, that's what I think we should do. Other forms of energy are fine.
Okay, James?
Sorry about that notification that popped up in the background.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting lesson. I'm not surprised to learn that we don't use it because of less valuable byproducts in the military-industrial complex's eyes. So for this, I think a lot about, going to go hard, priest to the geeks here, I think a lot about Genesis. And one of the first commands that God gives is to have dominion over the earth. And a lot of people confuse dominion with domination, right? Because humans have freedom and we have some degree of power, we can just do whatever we want. And that like hardcore happened during the Industrial Revolution when we discovered that we can use coal and gasoline, oil to produce gasoline. And it's easy, right? For the most part, you just burn that stuff and it creates so much energy and we don't think about the byproducts. And, 150 years later, we're in this awful state of, will our planet sort of survive? And we have this existential anxiety hanging over us. And there are some people who still just don't care. So for me, it's a very theologically motivated thing. Like we're called to take care of this creation that we share, right? God has put us here to sort of for the benefit, for the caretaking of creation, and the forms of energy that we use, I think should align with that. So if we can develop a nuclear energy source that is relatively clean and doesn't lead to nuclear weapons, we should go for that one.
Yeah, the waste is also very inert. It does basically nothing.
Oh.
Yeah, I think both of you bring up some really good points here. I'm with TJ. I'm on the nuclear energy side, winning out in the end. Less waste, produces a lot of power that we desperately need. As far as renewable energies go, wind power is only sustainable in certain areas of the world. Solar power, for the most part, could go anywhere, but the unfortunate consequence of that is all the rare metals we need that come in very war-torn regions of the world, especially Africa. And I'm not a fan of the human cost that comes from that and the human greed that comes as, that causes them to still be in harm's way. There's no such thing as a perfect energy. There's no such thing as a perpetual motion machine that we have created so far with science. That would break everything we know if that were to happen. So there's always going to be a byproduct. There's always going to be waste made. But I agree with James that we were created to watch over the earth. And part of that responsibility is making sure that the footprint we leave behind does not negatively affect it too much. Because regardless, it's going to happen. Everything's working towards entropy. And we hasten that a little too much for our own good. Anything else, guys?
Pray for the planet.
Pray for the planet.
Amen to that. As far as rating and reviewing the show goes, I'm between like a 9 and a 9.5. And I'm only there because we have not finished everything. There's still the hope for a new season, so it could let me down later on. So I'm going to stick there. I'm really enjoying it. So James, you have our next topic of discussion?
Yeah. So I was struggling to find a second topic right now, and that's just because I'm in this holding period, and because it's Lent and Holy Week, and work is a lot for me right now in the pastor world. So I'm going to look ahead a little bit and give some hype to some summer releases of video games. So I've been waiting with bated breath. I'm letting my hands take a much needed break and recover their stamina because it's a packed season. I feel like this year in particular, the promises of the next generation games are now coming to fruition. I think we saw that really kick off in February with Hogwarts Legacy. And so coming up, we're going to start with April and go through probably July as the last, I think, big release.
Go for it.
For franchises. So this month coming out, finally, Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp, the remake of the original early 2000s games are going to come. Some classic strategy games that were on the Game Boy Advance. Ironically, they were delayed several times. They were supposed to release in April of last year, so a full year earlier, delayed because of the war in Ukraine. There's a bitter piece of irony there for me, but those are going to be great. And they're going to continue this trend of remaking and reimagining all of our childhood classics. And I'm looking forward to it. The one remake that that they made, this was probably 2020, was the remake of, or the remaster and collection of all of the Mega Man Zero games for the Game Boy Advance. Oh, I love those games. And I spent a whole month or two playing through every single one of them. So I'm excited about Advance Wars. They're also doing a Legacy collection from Mega Man Battle Network that comes out on the 14th of April. The big one for the end of this month that I am super pumped for is Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Yeah.
That's coming out only on next-gen consoles, however. So luckily, every time I've been to GameStop in the last month or two, we just have PS5s and Xbox Series X's sitting. So I think the wait is finally over if you're ready to take the plunge into next-gen gaming. I'm super excited for Jedi Survivor. I'm excited to see where the story goes. I'm excited they've teased in the trailer that the main antagonist is perhaps a Jedi from the High Republic period who has been in stasis. So that will, I think, just be an interesting way to get the fan base back into some of those stories. And they're doing a lot of fun things with novels and comics right now set in the High Republic. So Star Wars Jedi Survivor, super pumped. Starting May 5th, Hogwarts Legacy is finally making its way to the past gen of games, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It's also coming to the Switch in July if you want to explode your Nintendo Switch. That's going to show the dating of the Switch real quick. I think it's an aging system. The big one that will also probably push our Switches to the limit in May is the highly, highly anticipated sequel to Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda, The Tears of the Kingdom. If you've been following Eiji Aonuma, who is the producer for the Legend of Zelda games, did sort of a 10-minute gameplay trailer, I think a week or two ago now, and really showcased some of the mechanics of the game. We knew from trailers that the game was going to take on a new element of verticality with islands now floating in the sky that we can traverse. We had seen some mechanics, but really we've got several different powers or abilities that Link will gain. Revealed the ability to fuse things together. One YouTuber I follow is now calling this game The Legend of Zelda Nuts and Bolts. So how many things can we creatively put together with the new fuse and Ultra Hand abilities? We're going to have great fun, I'm sure, watching YouTubers and speedrunners just completely break that game, as they did with the last one.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see where the story goes. I don't think it is a coincidence that, I guess, was this a year ago now, that they remastered and ported Skyward Sword to the Switch. I don't think that's a mistake. I would not be surprised if there were elements both from that game and from Twilight Princess that make their that pop up in the Tears of the Kingdom. It's going to be an interesting game. We still don't know a lot. We don't know if dungeons are going to return. That's been speculated. We don't know much about the story. It's been highly, highly foreshadowed that Ganondorf, that was sealed in Ocarina of Time and dealt with again in Twilight Princess, will make his return to the game. So check those trailers out. Get excited. I'm taking time off of work that week. Don't talk to me. I will be in my room playing on my new Pro controller that's going to release. So if you want to drop all of your money on a new OLED Switch, they've got it. They've got a new amiibo. They've got the full gamut of things. So that is the big one for May. June, lots of things coming out. Street Fighter 6. People are super hyped about Street Fighter 6. So if you're a fan of that franchise and series, get pumped for that. That's June 2nd. And then my favorite one that I'm looking forward to in June is Final Fantasy 16. I'm preparing right now already just to have my heart broken again, because we can't end a Final Fantasy series without some sort of tragedy. Like, don't get attached to the characters. Something awful is going to happen to them. I've been cautiously optimistic with some gameplay and some trailers that I've seen. I really loved Final Fantasy 15. I thought it was a lot of fun. It wasn't a perfect game. There are definitely things that they can do better, but it was exciting. So I'm excited to see what happens and how they make the next gen jump with Final Fantasy 16. That's June 22nd. The last thing that I'm excited about is July. This is sort of Nintendo's mid-year franchise release is Pikmin 4. Will be coming out on July 21st. So if you're a fan of that franchise, also get excited. I'm excited to throw some Pikmin and dig some things up and have some fun maybe along the way. So yeah, there are a ton of other things that are coming out this summer. It's a stacked next couple months. So if you're a gamer, get excited for the games I mentioned and a lot more.
Yeah. Dead Island 2 also comes out at the end of the month.
Oh, yes. I did see that.
I'm excited for that.
I think out of all those, I'm the hypest for Jedi Survivor. I'm ready to see what has happened since we last left Cal and the crew. And that being one of the few games that EA has made with their license, their exclusive license they had for so long that it did next to nothing good. Fallen Order was one of the best things they did. And I'm ready to see what they do now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Now, I guess as a general sense, what is your rating and review of this whole thing? Like, how hyped are you for what's going on in the video gaming world, James?
For summer 2023, I mean, I'm at a 9.5 to 10. I mean, I'm very excited. I think there's some huge releases coming out, some things that we've waited for a long time. I think this summer is where the promise of next gen gaming, which I guess began almost 3 years ago now. I think it's where we're going to finally start to see it come into its own and flower. The consoles are available now for general public to purchase easily. You don't have to sort of turn your Twitter notifications on and hope and pray that your hand is fast enough to purchase. And I think the games that we have been looking forward to and hoped for are now finally starting to release en masse. We're sort of over the COVID slump with things and finally getting back to business as usual. So it's very exciting. It's going to be a lot of hours this summer on my couch, in my chair, in front of the TV.
That's right. All right, good people. We've made you wait long enough.
Yes.
TJ's secret second thing is about to be revealed to us all. What could it be? Please, TJ, leave us in awe of your majesty in this moment.
Long lauded as one of the greatest horror games of all time. A game that may be on more consoles than any other, except for Skyrim. A game that changed the path of its own series and kind of changed, honestly, I think it changed a generation in a way. Resident Evil 4 remake has released, and it is fantastic. It is amazing. It's so good. But before we talk about it a little bit more, how do you guys feel about the way that, movies and games have been recently, where it's just like, we can just remake this thing?
I think as far as video game remakes are concerned, bringing them for a new audience is something I'm always in favor of, because, there are people, they're not going to go back and play the original because that's a lot of time and money to put into something instead of what is currently out and about. So I'm all for that if it's good. And I was never a Resident Evil guy, so I got to say my hype level kind of decreased a bit with your news. But you know what? You're really hyped about it, so I'm happy for you. So go ahead, James. Do you have any idea? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, so I'm torn. Some of the remakes, remasters are awesome, and I love them, and it's fun to delve back into those stories and those worlds and that gameplay experience. When I can finally get the one that I'm pumped about personally that I haven't gotten my hands on yet because I'm still a physical copy game person is the Metroid Prime remaster. Heard the music from Metroid Prime and I was instantly transported to being 12 years old on my 12-inch TV in my room, just terrified of what's about to pop up the next corner. So it's a fun way to go back and be in those worlds. What I don't like about it is that sometimes our fever for nostalgia stifles our movement forward, right? So like, what's Resident Evil up to now in terms of numbers? Will the next one be 6?
The next one will be 9.
Next one will be 9. So I'm not a huge into that series, as you can tell. That's right. Okay, yeah. So yeah, why not Resident Evil 9? When's that coming?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
4 is the pinnacle, so
Resident Evil.
That is what matters. I do think I remember 4 being huge when it came out. So I love it, and sometimes I wonder why aren't we going forward? Are we going back too much?
Yeah, I think next is 8. Next is 8 because Village just came out and Village was 7.
Yeah, Village was okay. Yeah. Okay,
but honestly. I believe, and I'm not alone in this, that Resident Evil 4 was the best one. And then it took a severe slump for 2 games. Wait, no, the next one is 9. 2 games, because 5 and 6 came out. Then Biohazard was better, and then Village was really good. So the next one's 9. And 5 and 6 are both really bad. Resident Evil 4, I think, is the perfect installation in the series. If you've never played Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 4, really, because it changed a lot between 3 and 4. But Resi 4 is goofy, campy. Resident Evil loves its camp. It's still an engaging enough story. People have their gripes with it, but I still think it's very compelling. And this remake is perfect. It's gorgeous. It's mechanically more sound. It's less janky. I feel like they've ticked the difficulty up a little bit, and some of the puzzles I feel are easier. That may be because I was a child. So who knows? But some of those puzzles used to be real hard, real tough.
Yeah.
They haven't bloated the game with extra things. They've just taken it, updated it, took out some parts of the game, or took out some parts of maps that people thought were obnoxious, switch things around so you don't know exactly what's going to happen. And it does more than enough to make you think, okay, this is different. This is worth playing. Because, man, is it worth playing. I've been having an absolute ball whenever I can get a chance to play it without, my friends saying, hey, let's get on Apex. But hands down, for sure, worth it. If you're only ever going to buy one remake, I'd say save that for when Knights of the Old Republic remake comes out.
That's right.
But if you're going to buy 2, you should get Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. But if you get 3, get Resident Evil 4. Yeah. Also, Christian, you gotta get into Resident Evil. What's the issue there?
I have watched playthroughs of 1 through 3 of the remakes. Yeah, 1, 2, and 3 have had remakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not for me. When it comes to this, I'm a huge scaredy cat playing horror video games. I can watch a movie, no problem. But then when I'm in control, forget about it. It's like, nope, I can't handle this madness. I can to an extent in other areas if it's not like the focus of the game. But nope. It doesn't matter how bright the room is. It doesn't matter, all the cheery friends I could have by my side encouraging me through it. Can't do it. Not for me.
You got to try 4. 4 really changes things a lot. It becomes more of an action game than a horror game. I think this strikes the happy medium. Resi 5 was too actiony, and Resi 6 was pretty much the same, but with extra characters.
Okay. You have anything else you want to add to this, TJ?
Yeah, 9.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this series. Well, it's not that I'm not a fan. I've never really delved into the series, but I just Googled Resident Evil 4 because I was trying to remember if the main character was the one I was thinking of. Yeah. This game originally came out in 2005, so very like My Chemical Romance hairstyle. I'm gonna take that for you all. I remember this game being so huge that like it's probably one of those. Oh yeah, you're doing it, TJ. I got you. Yeah. You now we're cosplaying.
Yeah, it's a shame this is an audio only medium.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I remember this game being so huge that like every once in a while a game is so good, right? that it deserves, I feel like, the remaster for our new generation.
Yeah.
This is probably one of those cases.
Absolutely. It was my favorite game for a long time. It was the best game I'd ever played for maybe a year. I think I played Knights of the Old Republic like the next year. But what a game, what a remake. Do whatever you got to do to experience Resident Evil 4 remake. If you can't play it, watch it. If you have a PS5 and don't want to buy it, hit me up. You can sign into my account. It's also on PS4, so check it out.
Extremely generous
for people who can't afford the game. Whoever can.
DJ is a man of people.
That he is. Always looking out for him. All right. Well, unless there's anything you guys would like to bring up about anything we did before, let's head to our conclusion.
Shoot the lake if you're going to play Resident Evil 4. It's good. I did
see that Easter egg.
You get some free loot. Big help.
All right. So, guys, which of the topics today was your top recommendation?
I feel like my top recommendation was just this upcoming summer of games to get hyped for. Summer 2023 is going to be peak. So get hype, look forward, save some money, do what you got to do.
Resident Evil 4.
I'm going to go with Hell's Paradise. And I think it's something that you need to get into. If you can handle some of the things that can happen in it, you're golden. It's a really good series. Go check it out. I'm glad TJ brought it up for our discussion. So, guys, Thank you once again for listening to this What's News segment. What's new? What's news? I keep changing up the name all the time. Go ahead and visit us at our website at systematicgeekology.org. You can find a lot of the tabs there for the hosts and the episodes we've been on, as well as our guest segment section to see people who've guested with us before. You can also suggest future episode topics there, too, to say, hey, I really want you to discuss XYZ series. Chances are we'll have someone who knows what it is, and we'll get it done. Guys, also join our Discord. We're having a lot of good conversations there about the stuff we're watching, the stuff we're reading, so on and so forth. Subscribe to our YouTube page, where we've had a lot of really good discussions on various series, ranging from horror to comic books and so on and so forth. Please consider joining our Patreon as well. We really need your help there to continue to pay for our website hosting, for to bring things to our patrons as well that we really enjoy working with them with. And remember, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.
This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries Podcast Network.